back here with another video. And today we're going to be doing the predictions for the upcoming season of the Premier League. Obviously, the season starts tomorrow, so I'm extremely excited about that. And I want to quickly make this video before any game starts, just so if I get anything right, I can get to claim full bragging rights. And if I get whatever I get wrong, I'm just going to say I did no one. So how this is going to work is we're just going to go in order of the teams that are on here. And I'm going to kind of quickly say where I think they're going to finish and give a couple reasons as to why I think they're going to finish in the spot that they're going to finish at. So first off, we got the Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have been a team that have been the nearly men for the last couple of years, finishing in second position 3 times in a row. Obviously, when it comes to what they're looking to do this season, they're obviously going to want to finish as champions. They've had a lot of key transfers this season, especially compared to the last couple of years. Obviously, they lost one of their midfielders, who I will not name. They lost Kieran Tierney to Celtic, Jorginho to Flamengo, and Tomiyasu, who left the club and is out of contract. They brought in Zubimendi, which should help, add some more pressure resistance to their midfield, as well as some better build-up play. Gyökeres, who they finally addressed their striker problem, who they will want to be banging the goals. Nani Madueke to add some added depth to their winger situation, as well as a center back who I'm not too familiar with, Christian Mosquera from Valencia and Norgard from Brentford, as well as Kepa to be their backup goalkeeper. Now, the question for Arsenal is going to be the same as it's been over the last couple of seasons. We already know defensively this team is very good. It's going to be a matter of making sure their players can stay fit for the entire season. All of their key players, right? Like last season, Saka missed like 4 months. Odegaard missed like 2 months. A couple seasons ago, it was Saliba that was missing key time. So that's going to be, one of the key things that they need to get right this year, as well as the fact that they need to be able to create quality chances, which is something that Arsenal have been struggling to do for the last 2 seasons, right? They don't create the most clear-cut chances. And I think, especially when you couple that with their lack of striker situation up until now, has been probably the biggest reason why they haven't been able to win the league. So with Gyökeres coming in, I think that should help in that department. However, unfortunately, I just think that due to how much the other teams have strengthened in the City and Liverpool, I'm going to say that they're still going to finish second again for another season. I do think they've improved. I just think that a lot of the other top teams have improved as much, and I don't think that what they have available to them in terms of their potential is going to be enough to offset that. Next up, we have Aston Villa, who were incredibly unfortunate to miss out on Champions League last season. I think they finished in 6th position with 66 points. This has been a very, very quiet start for them. So, really the only main guys that they brought in was the player by the name of Evan Goussand. I don't know if I'm saying his name from Nice, who looks like one of those tall, large forwards. He seems to be able to play all over the front line. I haven't watched too much of him yet, so I don't have a strong opinion on him, but he does look pretty good from the little clips I've seen of him so far. For them, I think the key is going to be the creative play of Rodgers and Tielemans, who have been one of the best players in terms of through balls last season. I think the main thing for Villa is going to be the fact that if you look at a lot of the players that got key minutes for them in the second half of last season, like your Marcus Rashford, your Sensios, your Disasi's, they're all not there anymore. And despite the fact that they don't have to balance out Champions League this season, they're still going to have I think they should still have European football in the form of the Europa League, if I'm correct. So they're still going to be dealing with having to balance the schedule, and I think that them not strengthening the way that they did, especially when you look at some of the transfers of the other clubs, might come back to bite them. I think because of that, trying to balance out Europa League and the Prem, and the fact that they didn't really strengthen enough, I'm going to say that this season I see them finishing around higher mid-table, somewhere around that 8th to 9th area. I could even possibly see them getting 7th, but I would not bank on it, so I'm not gonna give that to them. Next up, we have Bournemouth, and so Bournemouth last season they finished in 9th position on 56 points. They had a really key part of the season from beginning of December to mid-February, where they looked like they were going to make a push, to be in those Champions League spots. In fact, I think they had the 3rd highest points total in that time span. Obviously, they're a team that likes to play with high tempo. They're one of the hardest working teams off the ball. Last season, they were one of the best teams in terms of winning the ball high up the pitch, just intercepting the ball in general. So they were always tough to play against. I think the issue for them is going to be a couple of things. One, they've basically not really brought in anyone of real quality. They brought in Petrovic, who was one of the best goalkeepers in League One last season for Strasbourg, and they brought in another left back from Rennes in the League One as well. However, they've lost 3/4 of their back line. They lost Brani to PSG, they lost Dean Hoyson to Real Madrid, and they lost Kyrgios to Liverpool. So they're missing 3/4 of their back line. I also don't think that their offensive players are going to replicate the same form that they did last season. I'm specifically looking at Semenyo when I say that. So I'm looking at the fact that they've lost most of their back line. I don't see them being able to replicate the same offensive quality that they were able to do last season. You know, freaking what's his face, Cliver was out here scoring hat tricks and stuff like that. I don't see that happening again. So because of that, honestly, and I just think the fact that they've not done enough to address a lot of what they need to replace, and in terms of, and also improve upon what they already have, especially when you consider all of what the other teams have done this season in the transfer window. I see them being in that lower mid-table. I don't see them being anywhere near close to what they were doing last season in terms of challenging the top six and being one of the worst teams to play. I still think that they're going to be fine in terms of not being anywhere close to relegation or anything like that, but I just don't think they've done enough to, you know, really strengthen or even stay in that same level that they were last season. Next up, we have Brentford, who finished in 10th position last season. Again, I do apologize. There's a lot of construction going on outside, so I'm not sure if the mic is picking that up or not. But yeah, we have Brentford, who finished 10th last season, also 56 points, similar to Bournemouth. Now, Brentford are a team that, if you look at their transfer window, they've lost Mbuemo, they lost Norgard, and they've lost Mark Flecken. However, they've also brought in a lot of new players. They brought in Malambo from Feyenoord, Michael Coyote from Fiorentina, Kelleher from Liverpool, as well as Jordan Henderson from Ajax. Truth be told, I've not watched much of Malambo, and I watched a little bit of Coyote. Obviously, Kelleher and Jordan Henderson I know about. So I'm not going to make too much of a judgment of specifically the first two signings that they brought in. I'm also going to make a judgment on the fact that obviously losing someone like Mbuemo, their top goal scorer, their best player last season, is going to be a devastating blow to them, as well as losing Thomas Frank, who's been with them since they've been in the Premier League. Actually, before that, sorry. So, but, you know, all 4 of their seasons in the Premier has been with him at the helm. So they decided to upgrade their set piece coach to be, you know, the manager for the team. And I think the question is, I don't know how much of the set piece prowess that they have is going to translate to other aspects of the game. So that's going to remain to be seen. I think there's too much turnover on the squad and with the manager. And also, I believe Vista right now is pushing for a move out of Brentford as well, which I think was also something that was on the cards last year as well. So assuming he leaves, that leaves 2 out of their main 3, you know, like goal scorers gone. That's almost 40 goals just gone from the team, as well as their manager, as well as their goalkeeper, who was amazing last season, and their one of their defensive midfielders. So I think for them, is given everything that they've lost, I'm not gonna. I think they're going to be very, very worried about relegation this season. I think they're going to be one of those teams that needs to be looking over their shoulder at the promoted clubs next year. Next up, we have Brighton, and oh my goodness, bro, I'm gonna just start calling them revolving door, because I don't even know what to make of them. They've brought in 6 players this season. They've had 7 players leave. So essentially, I'm just looking at a new team here. I think the thing with them is obviously they are a young team. That's their MO. So one of the hallmarks of being such a young team is, you know, the potential to take a leap is always there. But in that same respect, the potential to take a nosedive, or worse yet, should I say, just be flat out inconsistent, is probably a bit higher. I think the thing with Brighton last season was they were good in terms of, you know, creating chances and being able to dominate territory and have possession. Their biggest problem was the fact that they couldn't actually convert those chances into goals. And now you're looking at this season, they're losing João Pedro, you know, one of their best players in that respect. I think he finished with 16 goals and assists in the Premier League, which was their highest goal contribution tally from any other players. Right, you're looking at the fact that they lost Adingra. They've lost, I guess those are really the only 2 like main guys that you saw last season in their attack. They've also lost Evan Ferguson as well, but he didn't really play that much last season. They lost Stupinan, who's been one of their key offensive players from left back. You know, he's a good attacking fullback. So there's a lot of turnover here, and genuinely, I don't really know what to make of them because of that. I think for them, I think they're probably used to this in terms of the players. It'll be interesting to see how well the coach can adjust to just having new players on the fly. Also, there's been rumors of Carlos Baleba trying to go to Manchester United, who I think would be a huge, huge loss for them if they were to lose him this summer. So I think because of all of that, I think they are going to be looking at kind of a mid-table finish. I think they're going to be in that 8 to 12 range as well. I think they've just lost too many players, and there's just too many player turnover for them to make that adjustment, I don't think. Again, they could prove me wrong, because like I said, they are an incredibly young team. If any player decides to make a huge leap in, you know, in their performances, that's going to obviously translate to them finishing a lot higher than I'm giving them credit for. But I just think, you know, when I iron out the good with the bad, I think 8 to 12 is fair for them right now. Now, this brings us to our first promoted team, Burnley. These dudes bugs. Like, they brought in 13 players. They actually brought a new team. Like, they just got a new team altogether. That's freaking insane. I mean, I understand why they did it, right? Like, they were in the league 2 years ago, and they tried to do the whole, you know, just kind of come in with not make too many substitutes, and it did not work out for them at all. Some of the notable ones include Kyle Walker from Next City, Dubravka, Leslie Ugochukwu, Armando Broja, Bashir Humphreys, Marcus Edwards from Sporting, there's just a lot. There's a lot going on here, man. They lost their goalkeeper, James Trafford, which is a huge loss because I was looking through FB Ref from last season, and for those of you that don't know, they had an insane defensive record of 16 goals conceded in 46 championship matches. And the thing that is insane about that is you look at their expected goals conceded, it was like 39. So you're looking at a gap of like 23 goals, which is, I don't know, that's unheard of. Like, that's actually insane. Like, I've never heard of that before. And on top of that, the goalkeeper who was able to do that on his own, he saved them about 12 and a half-ish goals worth of shots. He's now gone. And on top of that, they're going to be playing teams that are not going to be as horrendous at finishing as the teams that were playing in the championship, which is still obviously an anomaly in and of itself. So, given everything I've just said, and given the fact that 13 players is a lot to embed into a new squad in a couple of months before the season starts. Well, I guess tomorrow. Yeah, no, they're getting relegated. Like, we don't gotta play this game. I just think there's just too much. They're just asking way too much, way too much to do here. You're not, like, that is an insane gap to make up in terms of the expected goal conceded difference, the fact that they lost their main goalkeeper, the fact that they're expecting a bunch of players to just gel against harder competition. I just think it's asking way too much of all of them. And we have Chelsea. I'm going to make this one very brief. I think this season for them is going to be a continuation of last year. I do think they're going to get better. I just don't think they're going to make up for the gap between them and the top three teams, especially with all the top three teams getting better as well. So I'm seeing them finishing fourth. I think that's where I don't think they've done enough to make up for that gap, but I definitely think they've done enough to increase the gap from them to the other teams below them. Next up, we have the current FA Cup champions, Crystal Palace. So the thing with them is, last season, if you look at specifically just the calendar year of 2025, they're actually, I think, the third or fourth best team in the league since the turn of the calendar. However, that's really nothing new. I mean, they did this last season as well, or 2 seasons ago, sorry, when Glasner first took over. I would say they're a team that, they work hard defensively. They're not a high possession team. They defend in their box well. They will clear the ball when they need to. There's really nothing that's like special about them offensively. They're an average scoring team. They're an average chance creation. So there's nothing that really sticks out to them that's either like amazing or bad per se. I definitely do think if Eze leaves, that's going to get a big blow because he is like basically their most creative or second most creative player, and a team that's already not that special offensively to begin with. So, and they've basically not really had any significant players come or leave this season. So you're essentially just looking at the same squad from last year. They finished 12th last season. They haven't really done anything to really go up or down. So you have no reason to see them not just sticking in around the same spot that they're in right now. Obviously, they have to at least balance Conference League this season compared to last season where they didn't. But I don't think Conference League should be that difficult. We've seen the likes of Aston Villa being able to balance out the Conference League 2 seasons ago. I forgot how well West Ham did that year that they won. I don't think they actually did that well, to be fair. But yeah, I don't think see the league being as competitive as it was that specific year. So I think Palace should be fine. I don't see them moving up or down in any respect. Next up, we have Everton. My favorite blue team outside of Chelsea, one of my actual favorite team. But anyway, the thing with Everton, obviously, David Moyes returned back to the club last season. He was able to stay the ship and get them comfortably away from relegation. I think one of the key things for them is going to be the departures of the players that left, and simply just the fact that Everton are probably one of the teams that rotated their squad the most, with 10 players starting at least like half of the games for them last season, and they've lost 4 of those for nothing in terms of Decore, Young, Calvert-Lewin, and Jack Harrison, and they also lost other players that started like 15 games for them in Lindstrom and Mangala, who were loanees. So they've lost essentially 6 key players, and they brought in the likes of Tiano Barry. They decided to keep Carlos Alcaraz permanent, get that loan permanent. They brought in the likes of Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Mark Travis from Bournemouth, and the key piece here is Jack Grealish. So I think they've done a decent job in terms of replacing the players that they've lost. I think for Everton, the key for them is going to be if Jack Grealish can kind of discover that same form he had at Aston Villa. I think the thing with him is obviously for the price and the expectation that he had at Man City, he was never going to be good enough to fulfill that potential. But I think sometimes people kind of mistake that for thinking that the player's just not good at all. So hopefully he kind of makes a comeback in that sense. I think Tierno Barry is a very, very good striker. He was one of the most productive strikers per 90 last season in all of Europe, which is especially impressive when you consider the quality of the league they came from, playing for a team like Villarreal. I think Everton, defensively, they were good last season. Offensively, they were okay. And I see them being able to at least sustain some of the form that they had last season, in the sense that I don't think they're going to be really involved in any crazy relegation battle or anything like that. However, I don't really see them really pushing on, challenging for like Europe either or anything like that. I mean, they were 19th in the league for possession, which is insanely horrendous. 17th in terms of goals scored last season. 17th in terms of XG. Big chance creation, bottom 5. So like they know what they are. They're here to work hard, grind the results, and survive for another season. And I think they're going to be able to do that fairly comfortably. So I'm going to put them in the 13th to 17th range. I don't see them being as good as Bournemouth, but at least see them being better than Brentford. So I think, again, they're going to be comfortably not being in a relegation battle or anything like that. Next up, we have Forest, the biggest scam artist of last season. They overperformed actually by like 12. They had like an average of like 40%. Chris Wood has scored like 20 goals from like 13 XG. Like, we're not doing this again. Like, I'm sorry, this is not happening again. They finally got found out in those last 8 games of the season. Their XG went from the overperformance only went down to like 0.6, so they only scored. So actually, it was actually under. So I think they scored like 8 from 8.6, something like that. So they're not scamming their win this season. Like, I'm sorry, like respectfully, it's done. And they have to juggle Europa League on top of that. Granted, they brought in likes of Dan Ndoye from Bologna, who I actually think is very good as a replacement for Elanga. They were able to keep Gibbs White. They were able to keep obviously Chris Wood still there as well. So I still see them being able to be a solid team. I don't see them being as low as like in a relegation battle or anything. But no, like this is done. Like they are going to be in this 8 to 12 range. Like that's going to be their level, and they're gonna have to deal with it, love it, and it is what it is. Like I don't care. I don't care. Next we have Fulham, who are basically about as average as it gets. Like they're 12th. They were last season. They were 12th in terms of goals scored. They're 13th or 11th, I think, in terms of goals conceded. So they were 11th. So there's really not much to them. They have the oldest team in the Premier League average wise. I think it's like the average age is like 28 or something like that. So at some point they're gonna have to actually like turn over the squad, and hopefully all the older players like the likes of like your 34-year-old Raul Jimenez, he's still able to produce at a level like he was able to last season when he scored 12 goals and got 3 assists. Axel Wobbe has probably been their best player. 9 goals, 6 assists, their best chance creator. And Rodrigo Muniz has been incredibly clinical for them. He only got 8 goals, but I think his goals per 90 is like 0.76 or something ridiculous like that. So, there's little bits and pieces of quality. Also, Anthony Robinson, who got 10 assists, but I think was the most assists for fullback last season, I want to say. I'm not going to fact check that, so that's my bad. But basically, yeah, there's little bits and pieces of quality in there, but I just think that their high end is nothing special. But I also think they are consistent enough that they're not going to really produce any bad performances. So I actually think they're probably going to be the top of this middle section here. I think I have them to finish like 13th in the league. I think that's fair for them. And we have Leeds, who were probably the best team in the championship last season. They got like 100 points. They, had like a goal difference of like plus 65. But I guess the unfortunate thing for them is I just don't know how much any of that is really going to translate to the Premier League. Now, probably the better things that they did is that they kind of just kept a lot of their players from when they got relegated. And they basically just kept spending lots of money to add on to the squad. Now, I don't know how well that's going to translate for them. I just think, unfortunately, I think this league just has too much quality in it to really, I guess, trouble a lot of the clubs in the league. So I don't know. I just don't think that they are really going to be able to stay up despite all of the transfers they've made. So I'm just going to have them at 18th. I think they're going to finish 18th. I'm going to speed through these a lot because we have gone through a lot of time. Sunderland, I think they brought on. So I'm going to just see what I think is going to get relegated. Sunderland, they brought on a lot of transfers. Obviously, they lost Bellingham. I just think we're still at a point right now where the league is just too strong for the promoted teams to comfortable to say that they can stay up, even with all of the money that they've spent. I mean, I think 10 of the last 15 teams to get promoted have gone straight back down. So I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know about where we're at. And when we look at the likes of West Ham and Wolverhampton, looking at the likes of Wolves and West Ham, I think for West Ham they brought in Callum Wilson, who prior to last season, which was incredibly injury ready for him, he scored 9 goals in 20, which among West Ham's forwards would actually put him second behind Jared Bowen. So I definitely did think he is an improvement in that sense. But however, the thing with West Ham is whether it was under Lopetegui, whether it was under whether it was under Graham Potter or their other manager prior to him, and actually it was Lopetegui, actually. Either way, basically, neither one of them are really able to get much out of this team. And now they've lost, Kudus, Fall, Cresswell, Zuma, Ings, Mikel Antonio, and outside of Wilson and I guess maybe Kyle Walker-Peters and Todibo, there hasn't really been much to replace other players that they've lost, right? Like they've lost their main creative outlets in Kudus. they lost both fullbacks and only brought in one to replace them in Kyle Walker's. So I don't see the improvement, and they're already not improving that much to begin with. So I think for them, they're probably just going to be back where they were last season. And same thing with Wolves. I mean, they lost the likes of Cunha, and they're again same thing with West Ham. They were not doing much offensively to begin with. Defensively, they've been poor. They haven't really brought in too many game-changing players, at least seemingly so, because obviously we won't know until they've actually played. But when you look at the likes of Fer Lopez and John Arias, and doesn't really scream the likes of insane quality to replace the likes of Gonzalo Guech, Sarabia, Cunha, Nori. So I see them basically just finishing in the same spots that they did last season. In fact, I might actually have to move up some of these guys because I didn't do that good of a job of what's it called, kind of fitting these rows. But I'm going to wait to do that until I kind of get to these last five of the top 7 in my opinion. So who's winning the league? Who do I think is winning the league between Liverpool and Manchester City? If we were to go by what we saw in the Community Shield, that defense is looking kind of spooky for Liverpool. And I do think, and also we're looking at the fact that Salah basically hasn't been that good since February, quiet as kept, right? If we were to look at what Man City were doing in the Club World Cup, their defense is also looking pretty spotty as well. They conceded 4 goals to Al Hilal, right? They conceded lots to other teams as well. But both of them have especially strengthened offensively. You're looking at the likes of the guys that they've gotten, in terms of Florian Wirtz, Ekitike for Liverpool, Frimpong, and you're looking at the likes of Ryan Cherky and Tiani Rangers and Nori for Manchester City. And you look at the gap that already existed between the two of them, right? Liverpool finishing with 84 points last season, City finishing with 71. You look at all of that, and essentially what is coming down to me is, does the improvements that City have made, do I think it's enough to overcome a 13-point gap and then some to actually win the league? Or do I think Liverpool's improvements is too much to make that count? How much of the other teams getting worse is going to make that gap not matter as much in the first place? There's a lot of questions to answer. And to be honest with you, if I were to be fully transparent, I think the fact that Liverpool last season, expected goals wise, they dominated Man City. Right? They got 84 XG last season without any of these additions, without Trent playing as much as he did and being as involved as he was seasons prior. Defensively, I just think they're way better, and City haven't really done enough to address their defensive issues. Like Nori is as good as he is going forward. He's not a particularly strong defender, and he's in fact pretty flat-footed. They did not bring in another center back at all, which is insane. They lost their captain in De Bruyne. So given all of that, I think this is what I would have it. I think Liverpool are going to win the league this season. I think what they brought offensively means that if Salah declines in quality because of his age this season, it's not going to matter as much because they now have more players to lighten that load. They've gotten rid of some deadweight in the likes of Nunez. Luis Diaz, who I don't think is deadweight, but I also don't think he was up to the quality that they would really want out of their left wing. I think City, because of just how bad they've been defensively and the lack of improvement in those areas, I think they're going to finish 3rd this season. This is where I have it. So now the question is, assuming, right, of course, that the Prem get that last Champions League spot, who is going to get it out of the likes of United, Newcastle, and Tottenham? Because the way I see it, I think we're going to get back to the normalcy of the top 6 being the top 6. You look at the likes of Newcastle this season, they've basically stayed stagnant. They've literally not been able to really sign anyone of importance. You look at the way last time they had Champions League football, they did a poor job of being able to balance out their season. And they got a lot of injuries last time out as well. We don't know if Isak is even going to stay at the team this season. If he doesn't, that's going to be a huge blow. So if I was to go off the assumption that Isak does leave, or just doesn't play or whatever is going on, I think Newcastle are going to be the team that finishes 7th. And between United and Tottenham, do I think either of them? Because it's weird. Because honestly, this from 5th to 12th, honestly, I think is a lot closer than these tiers make it sound. And I wouldn't even mind to put any of these teams in here if they had really just done anything in the transfer window or had it or built upon what they did last season. Like if Villa had kept a lot of the players that they had last season, and maybe brought in another top guy like that, as opposed to just getting Evan, Gisand, I might have put them in that bracket. Brighton just have too much turnover because Palace haven't done much, and I think Force going to come back down to earth. And you consider the fact that Spurs and Newcastle both have to deal with Champions League football. Honestly, I think I might be underselling Newcastle a bit much. I think I'm going to put them 5th And between United and Spurs, I think Spurs probably have like their tactics wise with Thomas Frank, more defensively astute approach. I think he's more liable to navigate a Prem season along with Champions League, and I think United are going to finish 7th. But like honestly, I'm not committed to the idea at all. Like this is actually like genuinely really hard to call between 5, like I said, between 5 to 12. It can really go either way for me, if I'll be honest with you. And then in terms of who I think is going to get that last mid-table spot, who do I think is going to be? I think it's going to be Fulham, because I think they've just had the most stability. They have had the least amount of turnover, and they've been in that position already. I think Bournemouth have just not done enough to make up for their losses. I think Everton have too much of a gap to make up for, especially offensively. Brentford, I think, are in the same situation as Bournemouth, and West Ham and Wolves, I just think are 2 low quality teams at the moment. And to be honest with you, I think I probably have Everton over Bournemouth, all things considered, right now. I think from Brentford, West Ham, and Wolves, I think these are the 3 teams I need to be, especially look out below them. I don't see the relegation teams being able to stay up, but if they do, I think it would be because one of these 3 teams screwed up somewhere. So these are my predictions for the season. I'm looking forward to, the drama that goes on this year. This video was freaking 40 minutes. If you stayed the entire way, shout out to you. Kudos to you. You are a GOAT. You are a legend. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll definitely be looking to make a comeback. I'm looking forward to the season. I'll probably do this for, I don't know, like maybe other leagues, like Champions League or whatever. And most importantly of all, remember to have a good